right, this is Bob Coppedge, CEO of Simplex-IT, Coopetition Geek, and welcome to another episode of BizTech Twist. Now, you'll notice I'm not wearing the headphones. For those of you who are watching the video, I usually wear headphones because apparently that's both a homage to Mickey Mouse as well as that's what you do when you're doing a podcast. But I am left alone by myself, no guests this time again, so the whole thing about headphones really doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. But we are going to be talking about a concept that's built around cooperation or competition, or well, it's actually a little bit of both. And this is where I find fascinating, and I actually first learned this back in the mid-1990s. The rest of you can ask your parents. And I was in the IT world, and there was a company called Borland and a CEO named Philippe Kahn, and he talked about this weird concept about companies that, or organizations or individuals actually, sometimes they fight and sometimes they get along. And he was basically saying that there is a time to compete and a time to cooperate, and he called it coopetition. And that has stuck with me for decades. And I think it is something that we all do, but we never really address it. And we never really fully take advantage of it. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, we're all familiar with the idea or the concept of competition. And that is basically two organizations, again, could be individuals, who are both going after the same goal, and it's a usually limited goal. And so Party A wants Party A to succeed, Party B wants Party B to succeed, and they are not going to help each other. And that's absolutely fine. That's healthy. That's, as Simplex-IT as a managed service provider, we compete with other managed service providers, both locally and nationally. And that's absolutely proper. Thankfully, there's more than enough business out there for everybody. So it's not a, winner take all that kind of good stuff. But we compete, and it's good and it's healthy. But then there's also cooperation. That's when two parties basically say, if we share our resources, we can achieve greater goals together than we would be able to separately. Well, that's terrific. You can look at what's called JVs or joint ventures, where Organization A and Organization B are offering different types of services, but services that potential clients would want both of. So they'll both go to market and say, hey, we can give you IT solutions and accounting solutions together. And that's absolutely terrific. The question is there a combination of the two? And I think there absolutely is, and that's where coopetition comes in play. And that's essentially where you have a relationship between organizations where you understand that there are times where you're going to compete, and then there's times where you're going to cooperate. So the most classic example of that would be your Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is an organization, usually geographical in nature, that has all sorts of businesses that are pooling their resources together in order to obtain similar results. Well, you could have multiple accounting firms. You could have multiple IT firms. You could have multiple whatever. But they're all members of it, and they're all taking advantage of the membership. And you could even take it one step further and look at professional organizations. The Ohio Society of CPAs, for example, is a organization, and I've spoken at several of their meetings on AT topics, but that includes a lot of accounting firms or the like. And these are people who will then cooperate in terms of their profession. So by trying to make sure that there are standards, trying to make sure that there are resources that help everybody, a rising tide lifts all ships, except submarines. Doesn't raise submarines for some reason. But anyway, so are there other things that we can do though? So for example, let's say that you have, and I'm going to use my own company, a managed service provider. So a managed service provider A and B. What if managed service provider A is really good on one particular skill or topic, and managed service provider B is really weak on that topic, but is really good at another one that A is equally weak at? Well, if they're aware of that, they can basically work to provide support for each other, strength to weakness, weakness to strength, in such a way that they're not taking business away from each other, but they're making it so that each of them can succeed in a greater way because of the combination. Not enough so that they're going to merge, although that could certainly happen, but so that they can work together. Now, the only way coopetition works is if both organizations compete where they compete and cooperate when they cooperate. Because otherwise, if one party thinks they're cooperating on something and the other party thinks they're competing on something, it ain't going to work well. So how do we coopetition? By talking. We're actually, and we actually, by the time we play this, we probably will have released it. We actually did a video where we talk about our competition. But we talk about our competition in a good way. We point out the fact, we've got AtNet, Fit Technologies, Quality IP. Those are good companies. They're good managed service providers in the area. Now, we certainly hope that you use us instead. But if you don't, those are good alternatives. Similarly, when we talk about co-managed IT services, we're not saying that the internal IT people can't do things. No, they're great. But we can do some things they can't and vice versa. So these are all opportunities where we can cooperate. And then in some cases, we'll compete. So how do you approach that? Well, I think one of the things that you can do if you're the head of an organization is kind of take an inventory. What are the things you really do well? What are the things you wish you did a little better? What are some of the shortcomings? And the shortcomings don't necessarily have to be goods and services. They could also be geographical. They could be vertical market. They could be whatever. So let's say, for example, that you're an accounting firm. Let's make this simple. But you're an accounting firm that specializes in for-profit organizations. You don't specialize. You don't do a whole heck of a lot for nonprofit. Well, what if you knew an accounting firm that really does well in nonprofit? What if you just talked to them and said, hey, let's do something. Let's work together. And it could be just as simple as send the nonprofits to us. We'll send the profits to you, for profit to you, or something along those lines. Or it could be even hey, let's do a joint session together to talk about how fundraising or charity giving works from an accounting perspective. And one will give it from the perspective of the profit company who is actually making the donations, and the other one will give it from the nonprofit company who's receiving the donations. That way, both of you could be demonstrating your special talents, but together you're presenting a great package product for potential clients and organizations. And the neat thing is that you're limited by your imagination. Similarly, you could be in a place where you've got great reach on the east side of Cleveland or northern Ohio and not southern Ohio or vice versa. So we've got some agreements with some companies down in Columbus who will do boots on the ground for us because we don't have techs down in Columbus. We've also had some people up in Michigan to do the same thing. We also have some people who are more advanced on the security side, and we've done some work for companies where we're more advanced on the database side.
Are you fed up with reactive IT providers who take too long to respond, let problems fester, and nickel and dime you for every little thing? Say goodbye to those frustrations by choosing Simplex-IT, home of Amazon's best-selling author and BizTech Twist host Bob Coppedge. As Northeast Ohio's friendly neighborhood MSP, Simplex-IT has been providing top-notch managed and co-managed IT services since 2007, supporting hundreds of clients locally and across the United States. With a managed service provider like Simplex-IT, you'll benefit from proactive maintenance, 24/7 monitoring, and streamlined technology that will help you grow your business. Visit simplex-it.com for more information and to start experiencing stress-free IT today.
So by looking for ways to situationally shore up your needs, you find ways where coopetition will work for you guys. One of the other things, and I hate to use it as an example because it's built out of adversity, but it's great, is I've seen many cases, a majority of managed service providers are very small, are only, 1 or 2 or 3 person shops. And we've seen it when tragedy is hit, when one of the owners or one of the key people has in some cases just flat out died or had serious medical issues or other issues. And almost always there's immediately a wave of volunteers in our industry saying, how can we help? What can we do? And I think organizations having those kind of honest conversations ahead of time. So for example, I have about half a dozen or so managed service provider friends that know that they can contact me if they need that kind of emergency help, and honestly, so do their spouses. And also there are some that my wife knows that she can contact, in case something happens to me once she's done with the partying or she's caught, So these are just some of the situations. And the only point that I'm really trying to make here is that if you solely view everyone in your playground as the adversaries, the enemies, you are missing out on some great opportunities where you can increase the reach of your organization, the support for your organization, and some ways to take some of the weight off your shoulders. So, coopetition, it's not a word, it should be. Let's work together on making it so, because then we can cooperate on that. But don't worry, we'll compete on other things, especially if you like Star Wars. I'm really going to compete with you on that one. So, as always, this is a quickie in this particular case, but as always, I don't know if you heard the rumors, but a thumb has been saying some really nasty things, a thumb that was pointing upwards. So on your screen, you should really mash that thumb up because it deserves to be taught a lesson. The thumb's down, though. Leave that guy alone. I think he's asleep. But also remember to subscribe so you hear about new episodes when they come available for BizTech Twists. Once again, Bob Coopetition, Crotchety Old Geek, CEO, Simplex-IT. Catch you later.